do anything. You see all of this. What do you expect me to do? Fix it? I'm only 10. I can't even do anything this more. I just want to be a doctor or anything to help my people, but I can't. I'm just a kid. I don't even know what to do. I get scared, but not really that much. I do anything for my people, but I don't know what to do. I'm just 10. I'm just 10. All of this, when I see it, I literally cry every day, saying to myself, why do we deserve this? What did we do to this? My family said they just hate us. They just don't like us because we are Muslims. Why does Muslims act for you like that? We're just kids. You see all of the kids around me? They're just kids. Why wouldn't you just send a missile to them and kill them? It's not fair. It's not fair.
الله يزعل عليك يا رب.
تعالها خليك. امسكها رفع الله. احمد الله.
يا حبيبي يلا انتوا ولا
لا
Israel has exceeded the casualties in Gaza compared to the casualties suffered by Israel during Hamas infiltration. So my question is Israel satisfied and content with what they have achieved? Casualties on Palestinian side exceeding twice the number of casualties suffered by Israel, and still counting in Gaza due to the bombing and shelling that is going on relentlessly. So is that satisfactory, content with what Israel has achieved? And that goes for Israel's allies such as United States, Germany and the rest, or the 2.2 million people have to lay their lives for Israel to be satisfied in terms of self-defense and the so-called revenge. So that is something I think Israel needs to disclose to the world, which would be rather helpful. For the international community is not able to remain silent, and they should not remain silent either. This is not the Gazan, the Palestinian problem. What we are witnessing today is atrocity, extreme human rights violations, and the oppression of Palestinians, which, when compared to what Israel has been saying since the establishment of the State of Israel on Palestine, the mention of Holocaust is so repetitive that people are reminded, not only in the last century, it is even reminded into the 21st century. And I think it will continue even further. That is definitely so vivid in Israel's memory, or those who are rooting for the Israeli cause, and that happens to be basically, no matter what international community and international laws might be, Israel will always do what Israel thinks right, and that is exercising the military might aided by United States and Western Europe. And then Israel also wants to exert dominance through colonization and occupation of Palestine. And that goes for the regions around in the Middle East. I mean, it's not just confined to Palestine. Like as I said, the Israeli occupation of Golan Heights in Syria, that has also been a tinderbox with continuous confrontation with Syria, and then that getting in Iran involved, since Iran is sharing border with Syria, and that goes for Lebanon. All of this is invited upon itself. I mean, why would anyone want to take more territories than what they can handle? When someone is not able to maintain and manage what they have in their possession, and then seeking more beyond their capability and control, is only going to lead them to unnecessary and unwanted problems and endless issues which they need to worry about prior to such involvement, and then blaming anybody else for their own actions and egregious decisions. Israel's occupation and colonization of Palestine is the contentious issue. The colonization must end. The blockades and the barriers, checkpoints, harassment of Palestinians, whether the Palestinians living in Palestine, on West Bank, East Jerusalem, and that, for that matter, Gaza, with Gazans now completely at the mercy of the Western military intervention. The military intervention by the West is a international violation, even citing Hamas. Like, as I said, in that case, the entire world should go after the three powers, United States, Europe, and China, for the deadly pandemic unleashed on humanity, isn't it? If everyone goes on this revenge course, and if you lose a life, and citing that these were our citizens, and citizens' life were at stake, and we have lost our citizens, then I would say that would appropriately apply to the pandemic. Considering the pandemic that could have been easily averted, it was calculated, premeditated, and it was devised and designed to create havoc in human lives. So this is not something that, no matter how it is being circumvented and propagated since the onset of pandemic, and then even until 2 years later. But now, of course, the matter, as like everything else, is always buried, and hoping that it would never ever surface again. But then the people who are enduring the pain and the ill effects of that deadly virus, only they know how excruciating it is for them. So should everyone go after all three powers, China, United States, and Europe? Like I mentioned, since they are responsible for the deadly virus collectively, why not go after them if the revenge is the only way to settle scores? That would be appropriate, isn't it? And how about the vaccine controversy, where the West is the one who authorized itself on who gets the vaccine when, whether or not they would be eligible to get the vaccines, and all that politics that were played, not placing importance on human lives regardless of wherever there might be, whether it's Africa or Latin America or Asia or anywhere. And what kind of politics were played even with the vaccine distribution? The world witnessed and experienced that. So in that case, should everyone consolidate and come together and seek revenge for that extreme and this prejudiced bias that took place without a care or concern for human lives in general? So if one is seeking revenge for anything that happens, that means these are some really very legitimate and they have solid grounds for people to seek revenge. I'm definitely not advocating for revenge, but since this whole idea of invasion of Gaza is premised on quote unquote revenge and self-defense, and if that is the case, like as I said, the pandemic is the issue that definitely deserves to be investigated and those responsible to be held accountable. Unlike what is happening now with Gaza, the innocent children and population are being persecuted and brought under this military artillery showering on them, and the civilian facilities not even sparing hospitals, in gross violation of international law and the Geneva Convention, considering that it has been declared a war. That means that the people in Gaza are not even humans. They are not eligible for any human rights. So these are some very poignant questions that are raised by children. Children are being more mature and rational than the adults who seem to be running the world affairs. So there is a lot to deliberate on, there is a lot to think about, rationalize, rather than exceeding the limit in inflicting deaths, devastation, and catastrophe on the lives of those people whose lives are already in dire situation. That needs to change, and I call on the entire international community, regardless of wherever they might be around the globe, to seek peace and justice for Palestine, so that that could be the cornerstone for the rest of the population anywhere, no matter in which part of the globe they might be. They could have their freedom in this lifetime rather than waiting for many generations and not happening ever. So it's time for international community to come forward and extend their support and solidarity, which I already see that it is happening, because people cannot just remain silent when they are viewing the children in Palestine pleading and crying for help. I mean, you can't just become tone deaf and completely cold and heartless, turning cold shoulders to these children. In doing so, one only becomes less than a human. A human form is a gift, a boon. And in human form, when anyone refuses and refrains from being human by demonstrating humane values, they immediately renounce their human status. That is what it becomes to. When you're not heeding to the plea from the innocent, the helpless, the ones who feel hopeless, and you can't, especially when you have the power to do so. You have the power at your disposal, and yet how are you utilizing that power, or how are you abusing that power? That is not the reason why power is granted. If the power is to be abused against the hopeless, the vulnerable, the weak, that is not being powerful. That only demonstrates apathy. I find this extreme and extraordinary in their military aggression, not even sparing the civilians who have nowhere to go. I mean, with Gaza being a congested territory, like I mentioned, and people not being able to even move around, and with the Rafah crossing with Egypt being blocked. I mean, I can understand where Egypt is coming from, and that goes for Jordan as well. They can only take so much of population, the influx of Gazans to those territories, whether it be Egypt or Jordan. But why even create such situation in the first place? That's my question. Why should the Gazans be forced to flee the situation when Israel should not even be engaged in this military intervention? If at all there was anything to do with Hamas, first of all, Israel and the Western powers should have rejected Hamas's election by the people in Gaza. At the onset of Hamas forming government itself, the West and Israel could have opposed and rejected. Not that they could do that, because if that were to happen in their domain, they would cry foul, call that, like the Russian collusion here has been going on for several years, and it was definitely considered a violation of their democracy. But then that is not how the Western powers in Israel view when they are interfering in others' governance and government affairs. With Hamas having been elected by the people of Gaza, that is under international committee monitoring the election and calling that election free and fair election, and then onwards Israel having had Hamas all along, and then only recently it has evolved into a very contentious relationship, especially under the leadership of Prime Minister Netanyahu. So that definitely raised a lot of questions. And now Gazans cannot be held hostage to this military aggression. What is happening is gross human rights violation, and any time that happens and it exceeds the limit, that has only proven to be counterproductive and detrimental to the aggressor. And history is testament to this effect. And I don't think one needs to learn lessons too often when lessons are there to be learned the first time and never to be repeated again. That is what the wise minds and the rational beings would adopt, not to repeat the same mistakes ever again. The intervention in Gaza needs to come to an end, and with Israel having declared that Israel has eliminated most of Hamas leaderships, in that case, I guess I would assume that Israel's goals are achieved. Then if that has already been obtained by Israel, then one would only say that there is no need for this military aggression to continue, to prolong in Gaza, sparing the Gazan population from being displaced and left without any basic supplies. the essential supplies such as electricity, water, and food, medicine, etc., should be restored effective immediately. This is something that is also a serious violation of humanitarian law. People need access to these facilities, and importantly, food and water, medicine, and targeting hospitals is the most violent act and aggression. Even if that is considered that all is fair in warfare. No, I don't think all is fair in warfare. Warfare in itself is unfair and completely preventable only if the warring factions have any appetite for peaceful negotiations. If everything is linked to military confrontations and military aggressions, and that is what it has been all along, because there is little or no desire to engage in peaceful negotiations or give peace a chance. At the drop of a hat, they want to engage in military interventions or incursions along the border, or some or other form of skirmishes, military skirmishes. This is definitely very advantageous for the military industrial complex, for they always want this kind of situation to persist, rain or shine. The world always has to be at each other's throat, engaged in this warfare with the innocent civilians paying the price. The invasion of Gaza is definitely not to be extended any further, any longer, for the international outcry is already in progress, justifiably so, for people, no matter which part of the world they belong to, they can see injustice, they can definitely understand the human suffering of the people in Palestine. The people in Palestine deserve peace, freedom, individual rights, and a life with dignity, not harassment, humiliation, indignation, and criminalization. And I would like to let the Israeli authorities know that if their intention and their aspiration is to make Hamas non-existent, then the only solution to that is to end Israeli occupation and colonization of Palestine. Once that happens, I don't think Israel even needs to worry about Hamas. For the people in Gaza, they would definitely be able to choose their government and those whom they feel and trust that they would be the ones who can govern, building the Palestinian home, their lives, so that they can have a better future for them and their next generation. The best option for Israel is to end colonization and occupation of Palestine and let Palestinians have their freedom, their homeland, and individual rights. And the next thing one can say is the Palestinian would definitely be able to exercise their rights to self-determination and choose whom they want to govern them as the authority, and definitely that would make Hamas or anyone else almost irrelevant, for it would be the Palestinians' choice and it would be entirely at Palestinians' discretion on whom they want to lead and govern them when they become an independent state, a sovereign state, which is definitely the number one priority, and it has to be recognized, acknowledged, and honored now with immediate effect. I conclude this presentation right here, and I convey my sincere and heartfelt condolences to victims all around, whether it be in Gaza or Israel, especially the victims in Gaza, having suffered tremendously in the military intervention. Definitely what has happened in the last week since Hamas's infiltration, Israel's reaction towards Gaza, the people in Gaza, is not acceptable. I hope and pray for the situation to heal, and so that the victims all around can recover and get back to their normal life. Thank you.